How to get started with exercise 2.2, text buffering and label placement options in the QGIS map design book. And you'll be doing these sorts of things where there'll be subtle buffers around the label so that you're easily able to read it. It's not interrupted by it is interrupting the roads, and we're able to do some things with placing it. Before you do any of this, the first thing I'd suggest you do is you go into the QGIS 3 data folder, and then under resources, and then under fonts, they include a font that's probably not included in your default fonts that you would have in Microsoft Word or others. So this font here, you want to unzip that, you want to go into it, you want to double click on each one of these, the bold, the light, the regular, and the thin, and then you want to install that font. So go ahead and do that before you start. Because if you are already running QGIS, you'll have to restart it in order for that font to show up. So once you have those fonts installed, then you're going to start with the map from the previous version, and now we're going to start to label it. The first thing that we're going to do is for the coffee shop, we're going to do some rules-based labeling. So I'm going to click on the coffee shop here, and go under labels, and right now it has no labels. I'm going to change that to a rules-based labeling. And if this doesn't, there may be nothing there when you first start, but you can always add a rules-based label. I'm going to call this Starbucks because it's going to be for the Starbucks labels, and then I'm going to put in a formula for this. And this is just going to be like the way that we changed the symbology before. I'm going to go under Fields and Values, click Name, equals, and then if I type in Starbucks over here, I can double click here to add that and say OK. So this is going to be just for the labels of the Starbucks coffee shops. And some other things that we want to change here is we want to put in some buffering. We do want to draw a text buffer. Once again, we can try this with white color here, and we'll see how that looks, but it doesn't, I'll tell you already, it doesn't look too great. We're going to change that in a minute. But the other thing we want to change here is for the text, we don't want to use this one. We want to use the new text we've installed. Which is this one here. And I'm just going to say, and the other thing we want to do is change the color of the text to something that's going to stand out a little but not be too dark. Maybe try that one. Say OK here, and OK. And of course, we'll label with the name. Say OK and OK. So now the Starbucks are labeled, they're kind of close, and they explain how to move those further away, and also that white really makes them stand out. So we don't want to use that, we want to use something closer to the background color. So instead of, when I put in my buffer, instead of using white here, I'm going to use a color similar to my background, say OK, and they suggest making it a little bigger, maybe 2 instead of 1. Say OK, and OK. And now they kind of just blend into the background a little more. So that's kind of a nice effect. And then you'll just copy and paste this. And you'll change this one to not Starbucks, right? And this is going to label with all of the other ones. So you might want to make the text a slightly different color. Maybe something like that. Say OK. I'm still going to leave everything else the same here. Say OK and OK. And now all of the other ones are labeled with the ones that aren't Starbucks. And we can see that all of the Starbucks, the later peach one, the later orange ones are labeled as Starbucks, and all of the other ones are labeled as something else. And you can also work with the placement of those labels. You might want to get it right for one of them before you do it with all of them, but that would be under the placement. And right now it's a distance of 0. We might want to make that more like 2 or something, see how that looks. And you'll just play around with that until everything looks good there. You can see let's move things a little further away. The other thing you want to label is the lines. And for this, they ask you to actually put in something different. For you're going to do a single type of label. And they ask you, instead of just labeling with streets here, you put in a little expression. So this expression here, it's going to say replace name street with ST. So you're going to use the abbreviation there. Say OK. And then you want to look at all your properties here. Your buffering. I'm including kind of that background color once again so that it interrupts the line. I'm going to put my labels right on the line. You can put it above or below the line as well. And you can make that priority higher or lower. But one thing that you should do under rendering, and you should merge the connected lines to avoid duplicate labels. Or every time there's a new kind of block on, but the street name stays the same, it'll be relabeled. I'm going to press OK here, and we can see that these are now labeled. It might still be a little too much. You can make those labels lighter or smaller if you want to. But you want to take all of this and make it into a nice looking map, the way that you see here.